Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Illinois Congressman Raja Krishnamurthi is part of the new Congress that was sworn in yesterday, Sunday, and joins us now. And boy, Raja, getting things off with a bang. There's just never a dull moment in Washington anymore, is there?
You know, it's one of those things that I didn't expect when I got elected 4 years ago, and now this is like the new normal, or I should say new abnormal. And so I'm almost numb to the nonsense that happens around here at this point.
What is right now the reaction among your colleagues to this phone call that the Washington Post published between Donald Trump and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger?
I think the reaction is outrage. I think it's contempt, and yet, on the other hand, are we really surprised? This phone call sounds a lot like the phone call he made to Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine, where he kind of leans in and uses his power to try to get someone to create bogus facts as a quote unquote favor, and that's exactly what this president is doing with Raffensperger, who is being asked to quote unquote find votes that don't exist. And thankfully, Raffensperger had the good wisdom to record this call, and he had a witness, and so we know exactly what happened.
Kind of begs the question, how many other phone calls have there been coming out of the White House where people were cajoled and threatened? And I thought it was, some people are saying, I'm sure you saw the editorial in the Washington Post where all 10 former secretaries of state who are still alive posted that op-ed that said, whatever you think you're doing, Donald Trump, leave the military out of it. Some people are speculating that perhaps there was a phone call that they knew about that wasn't shared publicly where Donald Trump discussed something like this.
That's right. I mean, it's very interesting, that op-ed. It has every former and living Secretary of Defense, Democrat and Republican, saying, as you said, with one voice, keep your hands off the military with regard to monkeying with the elections. And you're absolutely right to point out we don't know what was the source or what instigated that. But clearly there was some activity or communications that they learned about that's deeply troubling to them and probably to us.
Now, we've talked about with the listeners what's going to happen tomorrow. Ordinarily this would be something, the Congress, taking the Electoral College vote and the vice president, giving it, accepting the envelope. But it would be a very pro forma ceremonial sort of activity. Tomorrow, what shape is this going to take? It's been pretty much established that there are both Republicans in the Congress and in the Senate who are going to stand up and protest. How do you see this unfolding tomorrow?
What's very interesting is I just talked to one of the floor staff. I'm talking to you from the lobby of the House chambers where we're in the middle of votes. And she told me that, you should come prepared potentially for a 24-hour nonstop session of votes and debate on the Electoral College process starting tomorrow at 1 p.m. And the way it works, your listeners probably already know this, and certainly you do, you need one member of the House and one senator to object to the certification of the votes from one state. So once that happens, that triggers basically a 4-hour series of debates and then votes. And if you have even the 6 states that they, complain about, you could have 24 hours right there. Who knows if there's any other states that we haven't talked about.
So it's 4 hours per state.
Yeah, 2 hours of debate plus roughly 2 hours of voting, because that's how long it takes for us to vote in groups. We don't vote the way we did in the past during the pandemic. We file in groups to try to socially distance from each other and so forth.
Wow. So, are you gonna wear your jammies tomorrow when you show up?
I'm joking. I was asking if I should bring a comfy pillow or what type of pillow I should bring. It's nuts. I know I'm going to be up pretty much all night, so I'll be shuttling back and forth to my office and catching as much of the debate in person as possible, but probably watching it on the tube as well.
Wow. One of our listeners has just called in with a question for you. If we could put Roosevelt on the line with Raja and me. Hey, Roosevelt, you have a question for the congressman.
Yes, thank you for taking my call, John. Congressman, are you guys going to start an investigation and do the same thing that you just mentioned? He did the same thing that he did with Ukraine. So can't you guys start an investigation and with the hopefully he could be impeached again between now and the 20th? Because all these things are happening and there's no repercussions. That's why he keeps on doing it.
I think, honestly, that the more likely route would be prosecution by local. So the way it works is there's clearly some statutes, some laws on the books in Georgia against election interference in Georgia. And if there's going to be any prosecution, it would probably start down there with their equivalent of a state's attorney or something like that. I don't think this Justice Department is going to do anything. And we're kind of running out of days in Congress to do anything else. Yeah. I think from my standpoint, I just want to see the back of him at this point.
Yeah, tell me about it. But, Roosevelt makes a good point. I don't know if you read Charlie Sykes, who's a never-Trumper conservative out of Wisconsin. And he wrote a really interesting newsletter post this morning where he said that maybe, just maybe, to be on the safe side, just in case any one of these avenues that Trump is pursuing starts to bear fruit, maybe it would behoove Nancy Pelosi, your newly reelected Speaker of the House, to have somebody draft some articles for a second impeachment, just in case some line of attack that Trump is pursuing starts to bear fruit, and it looks like he might actually do something untoward with the results of this election. Do you think it would be wise? His argument was just have them ready, have somebody draft articles of impeachment again, just to have them ready, just in case, so that if something really awful happens, there could be a snap vote on these.
Mm-hmm. I think that that's definitely one opinion, and I know that Charlie Sykes is respected. I think the flip side is, Joe Biden is coming into power pretty soon, in 2 weeks, basically. And on the one hand, if we thought that there's a real possibility that Trump could actually remain president, you might take certain action. But if he's going to depart, which is widely expected at this point, and we want Biden to have some chance of passing his own legislation, I think that any moves toward, starting another impeachment or something like that would really roil the waters and prevent him from, getting legislation passed for the pandemic, for instance. I mean, we have a raging pandemic, and we still have to, come March. I think I talked to you about this last time I was on your show. We're going to have to extend unemployment benefits. We have to get more money out there, Joan. We have to get another stimulus package. And I want to do everything possible to make that happen. That's kind of my number one priority, quite frankly.
Yeah. We have another caller who has a question for you. Maria is calling from Chicago. Hey, Maria, you have a question for Congressman Krishnamoorthi? Excuse me.
Yes. Hi, Happy New Year's. Yes, I was just wondering, I read somewhere, I don't know where I picked this up, that a president, even if he leaves office, can still be impeached. Is that correct?
I thought impeachment was tied to the presidency, but Raja, you'd probably know better.
That's what I thought too, Joan. I'm not aware of somebody who leaves office being subject to the impeachment process. They can be subject to the legal system in other ways, as you know, but I'm not aware of them being impeached after leaving.
Well, I think, excuse me, I've got a really bad frog. Hang on. I believe in the impeachment process is a way to remove a badly behaving president from the presidency. So once he's gone, it would seem to be pretty pointless. One more caller. We'll take one more caller before I let you go, Raja. Bill is calling from St. Helens, Oregon. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. I can read the Constitution, and the 12th Amendment says the President and the Senate shall open the certified states' votes, and he shall count them. She shall count them. There's no provision in the Constitution for any representative or senator to challenge the Electoral College vote at that point in the process. And for them to do so, let's for giggles say that they say they vote against counting the votes for Pennsylvania. That's an egregious violation of the 10th Amendment. That's a states' rights issue. That would be the Congress of the United States interfering in states' elections. They have no authority. This crap has to stop.
Amen to that. And Raja, I'd like you to comment on some of what I've been reading today. Two things. First of all, that the senators, particularly who are doing this, are doing it basically to raise their own profile, particularly Josh Hawley, who has not really had a national name like a Ted Cruz has, that it's all basically a move to increase their profile. And also, it has become so extreme that now they're even inspiring some Republicans to fight back. We've seen the Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, among others, who've said, brethren, don't do this. This is wrong. This is not who we are. So it seems that this mad grab for the spotlight could not only damage the country, but damage their party and potentially their future. I don't know. Maybe I'm just taking the long view here, and nobody seems to take the long view on anything anymore in politics. What do you think, Raja?
The short answer is, going back to the caller, so the way that the reason why we have this procedure is not just the Constitution, but there's actually a statute called the Electoral Count Act of 1887, which I'm sure it doesn't roll off the tongue very quickly for anybody. But it's this particular law which decides how disputed electoral college results are determined by the Congress. And that's the law that is kind of an issue because of a prior problem that happened in 1886. Anyway, fast forward to now, I actually agree with you. I think that Mitch McConnell and John Thune, who are kind of leading the Senate on the Republican side, have heavily counseled their senators not to object to the admission of these electoral college votes from any state, let alone Pennsylvania, which is, I think, where Josh Hawley has a beef. And so I think that the reason why they're saying that is I do think that it really hurts their chances of winning elections in those states in the future. You can just imagine, the voters of that state going, being ballistic as they should be, knowing that, the Republican Party wanted to throw out their votes. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions of votes, right? And there's nothing that can unify the voters of the state more than saying your votes didn't count, or we don't think your votes should have counted. So I think that's why my guess is that Mitch McConnell doesn't want to prejudice his chances of winning Senate contests in those states in the future. As for people like Josh Hawley, this is a craven political move. He knows he can have his cake and eat it too. He thinks that by objecting, he pleases the president. He curries favor with his loyalists. And, oh, by the way, a lot of others are going to do the right thing and be conscientious senators and members of Congress. They're going to vote the right way. So whatever I'm doing, whatever stunt I'm pulling off isn't actually going to have the desired purported result. So we'll be fine in the end. I think that's his calculus. I think that will come back to haunt him in the future, though.
Let's hope so. Thank you, Raja. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for getting on the phone with us from D.C., and good luck over the next 36 hours. I think you're going to need it.
I agree. I'm trying to figure out how I can get some pre-sleep for for Wednesday here.
Really? Oh, amazing. Well, I'm sure that I won't be the only one glued to C-SPAN. So try to have some fun. It's going to be a wild ride.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye.